Well, let's take you to Parliament now, where the approval of Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Torkornoo is taking place. We know the Majority Leader, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, says he expects that Parliament will approve the nomination of Justice Gertrude Torkornoo as Chief Justice today. Now, yesterday, the minority announced they would join the majority colleagues in approving her nomination, which makes the path to approval much easier. And speaking to journalists, the Majority Leader lauded both sides of the House for engaging fruitfully on the matter and backing down on entrenched positions. Let's take you now to Parliament as we check out what exactly is transpiring there in the midst of the parliamentary approval process. Kweku Asante joins us with more from Parliament. Kweku, have you cited the committee's work or report so far on this beat?
Means to prove that if you have a birth certificate and it's written on it Ghanaian, you may not be a Ghanaian at a point in time. That has to be proven by the state, because otherwise all of us have to prove on each day that we are a citizen of Ghana because I've not acquired the citizenship of another country. So, Mr. Speaker, Article 8 is not enough for you to rule that a Ghanaian birth certificate is not a proof of citizenship. Mr. Speaker, it might be that it is only Ghana that may have a law that will say that when you have a birth certificate, that birth certificate is not proof of citizenship. I hear, and at the vetting, the Chief Justice nominee suggested that if a foreign mother or a mother who is an American gives birth in Ghana, that child may not automatically be a Ghanaian. She is right. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, if you take the form that you fill to acquire a birth certificate, on that form, the mother would have to prove her own citizenship. If the mother says she's an American and gives birth at Rich Hospital, the registrar of births and deaths will never issue a birth certificate with a citizenship Ghana written on it. So the Chief Justice got it wrong when she thinks that, the Chief Justice nominee got it wrong when she suggested that as if the births and deaths automatically gives you a birth certificate with the inscription Ghanaian as soon as you get a certificate. Indeed, there are people who have got birth certificates procured in Ghana, but the citizenship on that certificate is not Ghanaian. Indeed, the nominee also provided her own birth certificate. That birth certificate was issued in the year 2000. I wonder what she used to acquire a birth certificate since she was born in the 1960s. I wonder what documents she used to prove to births and deaths to acquire a birth certificate that reads she's a Ghanaian. Indeed, I can imagine what she used. She might have filled the form, and the form would have said that the mother or father was a Ghanaian, and that is all it is, to prove that you are a citizen of Ghana. So, Mr. Speaker, I consider that singular decision by the Supreme Court as the biggest miscarriage of justice in our lifetime. It's the biggest miscarriage of justice, and this must not be allowed to stay. Mr. Speaker, to acquire a Ghanaian passport, the first item you are supposed to bring is proof of citizenship. And they said Ghanaian. If you go to the website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs right now, you will see that if you are supposed to get a new Ghanaian passport, the first item you are supposed to provide is birth certificate, into bracket, proof of citizenship. Mr. Speaker, this is also a proof that apart from the Supreme Court of Ghana, every state institution believes that a birth certificate acquired in Ghana with your citizenship marked as Ghanaian is accepted. It is only the Supreme Court who doesn't believe this. Mr. Speaker, this is not about law. The Supreme Court ruling, Mr. Speaker, this is common sense. It is not about law, because there's nothing in this Constitution which gives basis. There's nothing in this Constitution which gives basis of what the Supreme Court have done. And let nobody tell me that the Supreme Court judges have a basis in law. There is no basis in law. What they did was a miscarriage of justice. It must be reversed. It must be reversed. Mr. Speaker, If a birth certificate is not proof of citizenship, may I ask the Chief Justice nominee, is she a Ghanaian? And how is she going to prove it? Indeed, when I hear Torkornoo, when I hear Saki, when I hear Osei Usu, when I hear Akoja, automatically that should tell me that that person is probably a Ghanaian. Mr. Speaker, go and take even the form you need to fill to acquire Ghana card. Mr. Speaker, the question I ask them is this: Would the acquisition of Ghana card actually protect you against the content of Article 8? No. Even if you acquire a Ghana card, and you go and marry a citizen of abroad, you have lost your citizenship unless you denounce that marriage. So, Mr. Speaker, it is the biggest concern I have. And I believe that this judgment, Mr. Speaker, this judgment by the Supreme Court, and I urge every Ghanaian to respect the Supreme Court and the justices of the Supreme Court and all levels of the court system. But, Mr. Speaker, let the Supreme Court actually put their hands on their chest and accept that that singular decision was made in error and walk back and correct it. Because there's nothing in law. I don't have to go to law school. I do not have to go to law school to understand that a birth certificate, including her own birth certificate, is a proof of citizenship. And I hear people that maybe a lawyer should talk to you. I don't need any lawyer to tell me that my birth certificate, her own birth certificate, is proof she's a Ghanaian. If this ruling was procured to make it possible for EC to stop people from using birth certificate to register, then they've got it wrong. And Mr. Speaker, we'll take the necessary steps. We'll take the necessary step to make sure that the respected justices of the Supreme Court accept that on this occasion they have visited on every citizen of this country the biggest miscarriage of justice and correct that. For us to respect them. Mr. Speaker, the last thing I want to say is this. If we approve this nominee, a very respected lady, a scholarly woman, she's written a lot. She says she's a woman of faith. The only challenge I had was when she kept saying that she's a committed Christian, but when she gets to her courtroom, she doesn't use her faith. I used to think that people's faith actually affect the way they carry out themselves in everything they do. But she kept saying that when she leaves the court, she becomes a Christian. When she gets back to the courtroom, she's no longer see herself as a Christian. I find that one controversial, Mr. Speaker. But I want to conclude and urge colleagues to support the approval of Justice Torkornoo, simply because I think she's got what it takes to be a Supreme Court judge. And I am hopeful, Mr. Speaker, that she will be a better Chief Justice than the person she's taking over from. Why do I say this, Mr. Speaker? Under the reign of the outgoing Chief Justice, the level of miscarriage of justice in this country reached a crescendo and must never be repeated. And the former Chief Justice must know when he goes home, this miscarriage of justice rests on his chest. When a Ghanaian cannot use birth certificate.
Honourable member, please, just a minute. I see the Minister for Interior on his feet. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, we are debating or discussing a consensus on both sides to approve a Chief Justice. Then we are having interventions about the last Chief Justice, which is not part of the subject matter of this. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that in all fairness to the judges already who are disadvantaged that they cannot be here to respond, that if you could exclude his comments on that, then we would leave that. Mr. Speaker, that is my intervention.
Honourable members, we have a nominee to evaluate, to assess, and to approve or disapprove. We have agreed to approve by consensus. I will accept criticisms of the nominee. So far as the criticisms are within the law, that is permitted. But the law itself says they are the final determinants of the law. And so we will definitely listen to members propound their understanding of the law, but that doesn't constitute the law. And so let's permit members to do so with decency and civility, not use words that offend the law itself. Definitely, the honorable member did not only focus on the nominee. He went ahead to talk about the judiciary as a whole and the Supreme Court in particular. Yes, references could be made to that, but please, let's focus on the subject matter, that is the nominee. And from the report that I have read, I think the committee are convinced that she is qualified and worthy of the position to be the Chief Justice of this country. That is why you agreed by consensus. So please, let the debate be within this remit, and let's don't raise unnecessary conflict on the floor of the House. So, honorable member, you may conclude.
Honorable Speaker, and thank you for your wise counsel. And in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, to state my reason for my disagreement with the respected Justice Torkornoo, I used the passport form, the information you provide to get a Ghanaian passport, to prove that those information you provide, when you provide them, is proof of your citizenship. I've used the form you need to fill to acquire a Ghana card. It's the same information you use, so Ghana card cannot be superior than your birth certificate in any way, because the details you provide on those forms, Mr. Speaker, are just similar, nothing more. So I don't see why anybody would think that the Ghana card is more superior than your passport or your birth certificate. Mr. Speaker, I've also provided evidence from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which states that your birth certificate is proof of your nationality, Mr. Speaker. And I have evidence from the nominee herself, who provided proof of her citizenship using her own birth certificate acquired in year 2000. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell all Ghanaians, if you have a birth certificate genuinely, issued by the births and deaths, you are indeed a Ghanaian, and Article 8 does not preclude you. If you want to challenge, Mr. Speaker, anybody can challenge even my citizenship. If you have any evidence that I'm not a Ghanaian, it is upon you to prove that I'm not a Ghanaian. But you cannot actually just say that all birth certificates.
Honorable member, please don't replay what happened at the public hearing. The forms you are referring to are products of a regulation. And the regulation is a product of an enactment. And the enactment is a product of the ground norm, the Constitution. So when the judges are looking at the product of the regulation, which definitely is inferior to the provisions of an enabling act, which are also inferior to that of the Constitution, they take the Constitution and interpret the Constitution. And so the judges, I must say the courts, are of the view that the right interpretation of the law, both the letter and the spirit, is what has been delivered in the judgment that we are bound by. Yes, you can criticize, but please don't go to the extent of showing that you are not bound by the decision or you are disobeying the orders of the court. That definitely will amount to contempt of court. I know that on the floor you are free to say it. You can speak your mind on the floor, and nobody can take you to any court, but I'm just drawing your attention. No, I'm not a law lord. I'm just a speaker.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I never ask anybody to disobey the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, all I'm saying is this, that the judgment given by the Supreme Court suggests that when you acquire a Ghanaian birth certificate, it is not proof of your citizenship. Mr. Speaker, I am saying, and then I agree with you, I did not see the content of the judgment that used any content of the Constitution that actually says that based on this particular provision, your birth certificate is not proof of your citizenship. Mr. Speaker, I will abide, but let the rulings of the court make sense to the ordinary citizen. Let the rulings of the court be enforceable. Mr. Speaker, if we take the ruling of the Supreme Court as a law, it will be difficult for me to approve Gertrude Torkornoo as a Ghanaian, because she has no proof beyond this as a citizen of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, but I will leave this with the lawyers. But let them understand that they are not God, and they are also interpreting this Constitution. This Constitution makes sense to me. Their rulings must make sense to me. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Honorable members, please, the judiciary is an equal arm of government. It's an equal arm of government. The good people of Ghana expect to see that the three arms of government are working together for the betterment of all of them. They expect us to cooperate and respect each other and work in the interests of the people. I don't think any of you want to create any impression that we in this House don't respect any person in the other arms of government. I know that some comments were made to give an impression that we also here as members of another arm are not to be respected because we said that we are not honorable. Please, two wrongs don't make a right. So let's move away from it. I don't want to have any inkling or feeling that there's uneasiness between the legislature and the judiciary. It will not augur well for the governance and the development of this country. So please, I thought that once there's consensus in this matter, we would have moved, and I was given the impression by you, the leaders, that this matter had been discussed and done with. And so your comments have really taken me by surprise. I said that you can criticize. For criticism, you can. It's the extent to which and the choice of words that we use. That is my worry. And so, Honourable Member, even though you have concluded, you seem to have generated some heat. And I see people of your ilk saying yes, yes, which I disagree with. So let's calm down and let's give all the respect to the judiciary, the judges, and our colleagues working to dispense justice in this country. We should not give any impression that they've done, at least if you want to do, the due process is there. You can go back to the court for a review or whatever, but it is not proper as representatives of the people to say things that may mislead some kind of public discourse that could erode the reputation or effectiveness of the judiciary. One of the foundation pillars of democracy is the rule of law. And once there is no rule of law, there will be no democracy. So please, let's move away from that. I don't expect to see the leaders pointing fingers at each other. Please, leadership. Leadership. Lead the house. Lead the house. So I don't expect to see finger pointing from leaders. Please. I recognize Honorable Atachia, who was earlier on his feet. So please, let's hear you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the debate on the floor. Right, Honorable Speaker, I believe this hour is an hour of convergence and peace, and therefore we will not try to fight. Honorable Speaker, I'll crave your indulgence. Yes. Right, Honorable Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker, because this is a moment of convergence and understanding, the heat should go down. But I beg to say, with the greatest of respect, that when you have a tooth challenge, you don't go and see a carpenter, you see a dentist. It's very important. Anytime you have a tooth challenge, you don't go and see a carpenter. You should always go and see a dentist. That is why the whole governance system has been partitioned, as it were.
Of labor.
This is the chamber of lawmaking. It's all clear by the Constitution. I don't want to bore you with these matters because you know it already. Article 1251. It's so clear. Then another department of government has the remit to interpret the law. It's not a Gary and Bean situation in which we are in this chamber and then we want to be elevated into the Supreme Court. It's very, very important we get it right. Honorable Speaker, the issue of citizenship is a constitutional matter. If you pay regard to Chapter 3 of the Constitution, Article 6, the issue of citizenship is spelled out clearly. And anybody who believes that that provision is wrong, he knows what to do. You know the processes of amendment, which we have even the power to initiate.
In this house.
Honorable Speaker, I agree with you that any time we are in this chamber and then we veer into territories that are not ours, we will make some serious errors. If you pay regard to the this decision, which you might want to call it the James Gertrude decision, we have lawyers of consequence representing this man. That is Mr. Chikata. And therefore, if this decision is wrong in law, we know what to do. This chamber is not a review, a place of what has been decided by the Supreme Court. This is not an extension of the Supreme Court. Please. And therefore, when we are in this hallowed chamber and in the name of the power of privilege, we become a review forum for decision by the Supreme Court, it is much to be desired. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, that we didn't go that route. Those of them who are very, very powerful in the law, they know what to do. Anytime you are dissatisfied with a decision of a court of competent jurisdiction, you have to go to the court, the Supreme Court, and go and do the proper review. We should never say, it doesn't sound well to me. The Constitution is not your pleasure for it to sound well to you. The interpreters of the Constitution will tell you that this is how we understand it in terms of the Constitution, and then they will take a good decision. And if you don't like the decision, you go for review. So we are a law-making chamber, and I crave your indulgence. We should never assume the role of adjudication. And my brother, you can consult me on this matter. Free. Yes, and I'll do a pro bono case to help you. Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, it's very, very important. If not, it will be very difficult. Insofar as
I totally agree with you, except that your reference to if you have a toothache, you go to a dentist, not to a carpenter.
Mr. Speaker, I was trying to.
You are my very good friend, and a few years ago, you were counsel to our late illustrious president, Jerry John Rawlings. And the case that you did, I'm sure after that you had some critical words that came out from your mouth. That doesn't mean that you are not a dentist or a carpenter or whatever. I said that you can criticize. It's the extent to which you go that I referred to, and I agreed with those who think that he's gone far. I said, yes, he went too far. So I thought you would have left it there. But your statement too has really rubbed it in. And I think that was not in good taste. As a senior counsel, I'm sure you will accept that. And then I expect you to do the proper thing. Then we can move forward.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw the dimension of my speech in which I said that when you have a toothache, you don't go and see a carpenter, but you have to see a dentist. The implication of what I was saying, that I wanted to talk about the specialization. It's like, Mr. Speaker, it's like a chubby woman who said that she can do fertility more than the other woman. That is what I'm talking about. Yes.
Honorable member. Honorable member.
She might be able to.
You are making it worse.
I withdraw.
This one, you are swimming in unknown waters. You may go on now.
I withdraw these comments. And with your permission, I want to move on a little bit regarding the motion. Mr. Speaker, I am of the humble view that the nominee is a symbol of the power of womanhood. It seems to me that in recent times, the power of women are being showcased. We have Her Ladyship Georgina Wood, and then Her Ladyship Sophia Akufo, and right now we have another opportunity to bring another woman, Justice Gertrude Araba Eseba Saki Torkornoo. Isaba Saki Torkornoo, when she's approved as a Chief Justice. I believe the modeling is good for this nation. And anytime we want to play down on the power of a woman, the nation will be shortchanged. Years where when they say that our children who are women should not go to school, girls for that matter, and then the men are the ones who are empowered to go to school, it's over. Because it seems to me that when we create a space for women to flourish, they can become the best. And the history of the judiciary is attesting to that fact. Right, Honourable Speaker, I do not have any problem with the scholarship of this great lady. I sat in the committee's meeting and I was persuaded that she intends to change the face of the judiciary. Right, Honourable Speaker, there is a problem the judiciary is facing in the sense of the backlog of cases. The backlog of cases has come about because there is the situation in which most of the judges are inundated with several cases. And when that comes about, it's like, if we're not careful, in the hurry to dispense justice because of the backlog, justice could be diluted. This is the time for the problem of people saying we have so many lawyers and there are problems, so let's stop this situation of bringing our lawyers, that we can have so many lawyers, but they will clerk for the judges and be in the research department of the judges and then offload serious work that they are doing, and that could expedite justice. If you look at what is happening now, the Court of Appeal is so inundated with cases, and the Supreme Court as well, because the bottom is coming out with a lot of problems. When you see more appeals, it's telling you that the lower courts might be having challenges. And half the time, I come to the conclusion that they are so overburdened that they will not look at justice in the sense of quality time and the expense of people going to the Court of Appeal and the rest of it. So there's necessity to look at that dimension very well. Honourable Speaker, one matter of consequence that I believe she spoke about that I believe is very, very important for the justice delivery system. Is it possible to look at the promotion of alternative dispute resolution? The issue of alternative dispute resolution has a very important underlying point, that it is not every case we should find space in the normal court system to get it choked and overwhelmed. There are several cases that can be resolved, like we have just resolved a serious problem here without too much tension. So that option should be explored seriously to aid justice delivery system. Let's find amicable ways of solving problems. Right, Honourable Speaker, I will come back to the issue of womanhood. Today, we are aware that the intellectual capital of a woman matters. It's not only the body capital of a woman which matters, the intellectual capital. And when we can see that women have intellectual capital to perform, you should free the space for the best to come out of a woman. I am fully persuaded that, subject to our approval, if this good lady is approved by this House and becomes the Chief Justice, and I think she has longevity on her side, her legacy should be a very, very well improved justice system to the benefit of all. After all, even we in this chamber, when we have personal legal challenges. The adjudication is with them. So that is the bastion where problems are resolved. And no matter who you are, the law will end in that place. So we should always bear that in mind and see how justice delivery is enhanced. You will not know when you will be the next person to go and deploy that service. I'm grateful to you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
Honorable members, let me say that traditionally and historically, this country has always acknowledged the intellectual capital of a woman. And that is why anytime we are having a difficult case, we are challenged mentally, we say, let's go and consult the old lady. It's not now. It's just that along the line, I think some Beshi came and people decided to marginalize women. Was it a Beshi? Beshi? Yes, Beshi. Beshi. You see, I think that is being done away with now. And I don't know whether it's exercising. So please, I will take 2 more contributions and then we'll move on. 2, not more than 2. The honorable member for Tamale South, then after that, one from this side, the gentleman over there, the one behind the Minister for Interior. Yes, please.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the motion for the approval of the President's nomination of Justice Gertrude Torkornoo for appointment as Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, reference has been made to Article 1441 of the Constitution, rightly respected by the President of the Republic, to appoint a Chief Justice for the Republic. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I was reading in the news a validatory ceremony in honor of one of the retiring Chief Justices and probably the acting Chief Justice as at this morning, the Supreme Court Judge Doche. And Mr. Speaker, today, as you have advised us, I intend to make just 3 comments, but want to remind our colleagues that all of us passing through law school, I still recall the writing of Bimpong Buta, 2005, the role of the Supreme Court in the development of constitutional law. And Mr. Speaker, as you appropriately advised, the Supreme Court is not above the criticisms of the Parliament of Ghana. Indeed, in civilized jurisdictions and even in Ghana, the Supreme Court or the courts are servants of the legislature. We make the law. They are to interpret the law. That is why we are enjoined not to use language that is ambiguous. When they are interpreting the law, they are supposed to be guided by the words the legislature uses, that members of parliament uses. So nobody should think that freedom of expression is limited only in our bedrooms. In this chamber, we are guaranteed freedom of expression. And that freedom of expression, embedded in it is the potency and ability to critique a judgment if you do not find the judgment pleasant in law and probably in facts. So, Mr. Speaker, we should be guided by your advice. But, Mr. Speaker, I still recall, and I go to the report of the Appointments Committee where they are talking about independence of the judiciary. And Mr. Speaker, in Ghana, every other day we are talking about independence of the judiciary, and I seldom want to ask independence to whom? Independence from what? And independence from whom? That is the test judges of the Supreme Court and all other judges must subject themselves from. When you say they are independent, in the normative sense, what is the perception and thinking of Ghanaian citizens of our judges? What do they think of them? Do they think that they are being influenced or not? Those perceptions are important because they need to be assured that they are influenced only by the law, and they should be influenced in their decisions only by the law. Mr. Speaker, I see reference in this judgment when the Honorable Minority Leader was asking for the reasoned judgment in the Judicial case. That has been provided. But Mr. Speaker, again, this is the House of Parliament. Are we not free to criticize the Judiciary and the Supreme Court of Ghana that did they construe the words before filing of nominations and before elections? Are those words synonymous? Do they mean the same? Mr. Speaker, I beg to disagree. They probably got it wrong. Before filing nominations cannot be the same thing as at the time of elections. But the legislature make the law, and therefore they ought to consider all other variables in the determination of the decisions that they make. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, you swore in a member of Parliament for Kumao. At what material time, Mr. Speaker, did you administer the oath of allegiance to him? And therefore, was the Supreme Court making a determination on allegiance to the state? And at what stage was Jesse Quayson swearing to an oath of allegiance? Was it at the time of filing or at the time of election, or when he swore in this chamber to owe allegiance to the Republic of Ghana? Particularly, Mr. Speaker, jurisprudence differ. In some countries, when you express the intention that you have denounced your citizenship, even the next hour, you are no longer a citizen of that country. But at least in the Judicial case, we are told he had expressly renounced the citizenship. Must he be held responsible for those administrative processes and lapses that did not allow him to have a final declaration of it by way of certificate? We leave it to their judgment. But this is what we are saying, that the Supreme Court of Ghana must be minded by the decisions they take, the environment in which they take those decisions. If COVID affected those administrative processes, must he suffer injustice because of it, when COVID was not his imposition? So, Mr. Speaker, when we say, I have repeatedly advocated, and I still believe same, that Ghana's constitution needs a review. The number of justices of the Supreme Court, in my view, should not exceed 11. But Mr. Speaker, Justice Gertrude Torkornoo promotion to the Supreme Court and to Chief Justice is only a natural progression for her. And it's with pride for Ghanaian women that beyond Justice Theodora Wood, beyond Justice Sophia Akufo, at the highest level of government and the highest level of decision making in the public service of Ghana, we have a woman that we can be proud of. But she should go and administer justice without fear or favor, or without any influence by the political elite. This is important for her. But Mr. Speaker, I need a copy of Mr. Speaker, may I refer you to this article? And probably this is what I pray will be part of her legacy as Chief Justice of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, and I'm referring you to Article 158 of the 1992 Constitution. Before doing so, Mr. Speaker, I must recognize that at the time, I was then Ghana's Minister for Labor, and I know the effort Justice Theodora would put in this matter. I know the effort of Justice Sophia Akufo in this matter, but none of them have been able to achieve this constitutional imperative for the judicial service. And Mr. Speaker, Article 158(2), I quote, and for the record, answer to capture same, it reads, the Judicial Council shall act in consultation with the Public Services Commission. In Ghana, for our purposes today, that will be the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. And with the prior approval of the President, Mr. Speaker, this is my emphasis, by constitutional instrument, make regulations prescribing the terms and conditions of service of the persons to whom clause 1 of this article apply. So, Mr. Speaker, when you read this report, the chairman of the committee captures it in his report when he expresses concern about strike actions within the judicial service. Mr. Speaker, judicial strike actions can be fatal because when you hold somebody's liberty and a court is not sitting and you are still holding to that liberty, how are you going to compensate for that liberty? That is why we must work to avoid it. But Mr. Speaker, as I said, unlike what you have done, and Mr. Speaker, I hope I can say this, pay policy for parliamentary service improved under you, improving on the work of Professor Michael Quay, revising CI 118. There is none for the judicial service of Ghana. That is why you have all these problems of intermittent strikes actions. So I think that the Lady Chief Justice, when she assumes office, must give proper attention to Article 1582 of the Constitution and do good for the judicial service and the workers within the judicial service by making sure that this constitutional instrument, Mr. Speaker, comes to Parliament, like what you have done in the past for parliamentary service. As a co-equal organ of government, there must be mutual respect. Mr. Speaker, let me now come to the committee's report when it talks about, I didn't say it, Mr. Speaker, paragraph 4.3, protest by staff of the judicial service as captured by the chairman of the committee on appointment. This is the only way the Lady Chief Justice to be can make a mark administratively and constitutionally. Once upon a time, they were threatening suing. If you sue, you will lose because the constitutional instrument has not worked its journey in this house. And I believe that she is very capable of doing that. Mr. Speaker, legacy of her as Chief Justice, I believe she will. I'm very confident that she will improve upon the e-justice system and ensure the speedy adjudication of cases. But Mr. Speaker, again, the Supreme Court is not above our criticisms in this house. How come that in some cases they act with alacrity and speed, and in some cases they are not? When you talk about the matter involving ratification of mineral resources, in the case which affected Exxon Cubic, the Honorable Suhini and Co filed another matter in the Supreme Court regarding the ratification of same matter of mineral rights that has been granted. Why is the Supreme Court sleeping on those matters? They must be seen acting with the same interest and enthusiasm and with the same speed, because those matters that were done against Exxon Cubic have been given even to non-Ghanaians. That has not been ratified. You have to come to it. E-levy, our matter is still pending in court. We want to know, was Parliament properly constituted? Was the minimum threshold of 138 for decision, as is required in that constitutional article, met? We need to know. But they cannot be acting, selecting and choosing which matters they must act with speed. No, that does not assure us of confidence in the judicial system, and in a judicial system that must be independent and act expeditiously on matters affecting all of us. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate her. I believe that, as the report says, it is a consensus report. We are still working to demystify law education in this country. Much more can be done to improve legal education in our country. Matters of continuous legal education, she promised, will be part of her attention. But, Mr. Speaker, we say that we are not satisfied with the judgment in relation to our colleague Gertrude Torkornoo, and it is within our right to be critical of them that they did not consider the context and the environment in which they took those decisions, particularly in interpreting the words filing of nomination and elections. Those words, they are unambiguous words. My friend Atachia, you read cross as I read him. He says that look for the secondary meaning of words only when their primary meanings are absurd. So what could be the absurdity about the words of filing of nomination and at the time of election? Two distinct words with distinct meanings. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the appointments committee and believe that the country must have a Chief Justice. And a Chief Justice, Mr. Speaker, as you have observed, mutual respect, co-equal organs of state. There must be respect between us and them. And I believe that your guide here can be very, very useful. But independence of the judiciary should not be anybody's imagination. And then on the other issue, as I have said, I still share the view that we should limit the number of justices of the Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, with these comments, as I have said, only a matter of natural progression for Justice Araba Esaba Torkornoo to be Chief Justice of Ghana, having risen from the High Court to the Court of Appeal, is only natural. That if she's so chosen and recognized by the President, it will have our support. Let's all support her and wish her well, but she should discharge her duties without fear or favor, nor political influence, and uphold her judicial oath. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, Chairman, I couldn't identify you. That Chairman of the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am grateful to the committee, the Appointments Committee, for this report. And I would want to start, and Mr. Speaker, with your permission, read a portion of their conclusion, which says, at the last page, the nominee showed character, competence, and dexterity in the knowledge of the law. She pledged to interpret the law without fear or favor if approved as the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I'm also grateful for what you have said, that the three arms of government, they exist equally to lead the country. The Constitution has provided us with a lot of other things, inclusive of separation of powers and a lot of rights that we have to use as a machinery in this country. Mr. Speaker, the judiciary does not exist to serve the legislature. They only interpret the law that we make. And the judiciary is equal to the legislature and as well as the executive, as the three arms of government. Mr. Speaker, there was a question that was asked on the bias of the judiciary. I never had the opportunity to sit at the Appointments Committee, but the learned judge had an answer, and it's part of the report, which is at page 14. And she said, and Mr. Speaker, if I may quote, in responding to the question of bias on the part of the Supreme Court, the nominee emphasized that a unanimous verdict by the court shows that the law is totally on the side of the party who won. She reiterated that unanimous decisions by courts underscore the fidelity of judges to their judicial oath, because judges are hesitant to act contrary to positions other than the law. End of quotation. Mr. Speaker, in this House, it looks like when a decision is given by a court and it favors one side We praise the decision. When a decision is given and condemns, it is not in favor of one half, we condemn. We must not be conclusive to say that the judiciary is biased. And we must not be using expensive words towards the judiciary. I heard my friend say that a decision of the court must be sensible to the ordinary citizens of the land. I may want to find out who made that friend of mine lord over the whole house. What makes you think that what you are reading is sensible and it is not sensible to the other party? I was in this house, Mr. Speaker, when a colleague of ours, Honorable Adamu Sakunde, was put to jail on similar issues, and he died in prison. At that time, what did we say? What we have to do as a house is to look at the basic law that the judiciary is interpreting.
Honorable Chairman, the responsibility bestowed on you is not the same as the one bestowed on the earlier speaker you are referring to. You are a lawyer. You understand? He is not a lawyer, and he's expressing his views. So please, as a lawyer, make sure you don't fall into the same trap.
I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker, and I'm guided. Mr. Speaker, I would want to say that we have had cases like the Jomoro case and Savelugu case, and a decision was given. And we were comfortable with what the judiciary has said.
I advise you to move away from those cases.
Very well, Mr. Speaker.
I personally handled some of them. I don't want to be referring to them because I know that even the time I was handling some of those petitions, His Excellency the President was also on the other side. And we did them, and we know the outcome of those cases. But they did not get to the Supreme Court. We are now dealing with the Supreme Court, and we are dealing with a nominee. Let's just restrict ourselves to that matter and see how we can approve the very qualified nominee to the position of Chief Justice.
Grateful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the report, this lady, a 61-year-old woman, is a very fine lady, educated in Cape Coast and other places. At Chimota, the Ghana Law School, and she, Mr. Speaker, when I picked the background and the report, I am not sure whether she is rather an academician than a judge. This lady had read a postgraduate diploma in international law and had gone on to read masters in intellectual property law in the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, looking at her background, this lady served as part of FIDA. And FIDA, we all know, are the lady lawyers, that is the Federation of Women Lawyers Association. And they serve as legal aid to not only women, but people that are disadvantaged in the society. Mr. Speaker, her ladyship also served in one of the finest law firms in Ghana, that is Fuga and Co. And she established her own law firm, which is also Law Consult where she was the managing solicitor until she was appointed to the High Court. Having served 8 years at the High Court, she was appointed to the Court of Appeal and served at the Court of Appeal until 2019, when she was appointed a judge to the IPES land. Among her duties, one of the things that she's been doing is the E-Justice Oversight and Implementation Committee. She's done this since August. She served on the Law Reform Commission. Mr. Speaker, she's given a number of articles, and that's why I say that she's even more of an academician, and has also written lots of books. She has received awards, essay competitions. I do not know what else we have to say when we are saying that, when we are talking about well-balanced person. She is encouraging young ladies as part of the report, and she's contributed to the nation. We cannot overlook her competence, and therefore what I started by quoting the last part of their report, which the committee has said that she is competent, is really the case. And I commend the committee members for doing that. On other issues, her view on capital punishment, which is something that this House is considering, the ladyship said that she personally does not support the view of capital punishment, but because it's the law, she cannot run away from that. On other things, like the closure of courts of Court of Appeal, she gave a brilliant answer by Mr. Speaker, I need your protection. I'm being heckled. She gave a brilliant answer that we would have to use the virtual court, and which we are looking forward to if she is given the nod by this House. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on, but because especially the first Deputy Speaker is heckling me, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity that has been given me. Thank you.
Honorable Chairman, you are not above heckling. So if you are being heckled, that's the right thing to do. It's when the heckling is up to a stage that is above the normal that I come in to protect you. But you were rather drawing my attention to your being heckled. I never saw that you were being heckled. I never heard any such heckling. I am prevailed upon, and I think that's the right thing to do, to let's have the gender balance. And so I will give an opportunity, not to you, Honorable Mahama Yarga, but to the lady, Honorable lady behind you. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to recognize a lady when a lady has been nominated. Mr. Speaker, it is very interesting to note that Justice Gertrude Torkornoo was appointed as a High Court judge in May 2004. 20 years down the line, he's been nominated for the high office of Chief Justice, number 4, Mr. Speaker, after you. His competence has not been challenged in this House. It looks like the whole House is adamant about her competence to be the Chief Justice if we give her the nod. When she appeared before the Appointments Committee, one of the things that excited me was her interest in alternative dispute resolution. Mr. Speaker, the courts are choked. Litigation is expensive. and it takes forever for parties to get justice. And so when she said that she was interested in alternative dispute resolution, I was personally excited. I hope that she will take it very seriously. Even though alternative dispute resolution generally is settlement of a dispute out of court, we know that when it comes to the enforcement of an arbitration award, for example, the court is important in the enforcement of arbitration. Also, when it comes to interpretation of issues like competence in arbitration, we still go to the court. So we hope that with her interest in alternative dispute resolution, the Chief Justice will make a way for parties in arbitration to get expeditious interpretation, expeditious establishment of the enforcement of the awards, because these are parties who have generally stated that they are not interested in the traditional court because of the challenges that they have. So even if she's interested in ADR, she has to have her own way of making sure that parties in ADR will have their matters adjudicated upon expeditiously when they come to court. One other thing that she stated was also about custodial sentences. She said that if you can give a fine on a matter, there is no need to put the person in jail. Cases after cases, it is obvious that sometimes putting somebody in jail is used to overpunish a party. We also know that accused persons, we also know that whether you are an accused person, whether you are a convicted prisoner, you still have some rights. But if you go to the prisons right now, it is an eyesore. People don't even have a place to sleep. So if at the end of your sentence, if at the end of the day, a fine can suffice, there is no way to put somebody in jail. When she's giving the nod, we hope that she will continue to prevail upon the judges under her supervision to do exactly what she has said. Again, in the area of capital punishment, I'm sitting very far apart from the first deputy speaker, so I cannot be heckled, and I'm looking straight at the speaker also. In terms of capital punishment, she said that it is so final that it shouldn't be the way to go, according to her own opinion, because we asked her, even though if you shoot another person's child, it is final, somebody can be shot by accident, there may be reasons why somebody will be convicted of murder, and later evidence will show that the person did not actually commit the act. So I was also added them with her that she thinks capital punishment should not be the way to go. She has done well for herself. She represents women in a very positive light. We wish her well. We hope that she will give credence to the adage that what a woman can do, a man cannot do. And what a man can do, a woman can even do better. On that note, we wish her well. She should go there and excel, and let Ghanaians even think that the best gender to be a Chief Justice going forward should be a woman. I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, honorable members, the gender should balance. Yes, the honorable Minister for Communication. And that will be the final contribution. After that, I'll put the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the privilege to contribute to this debate on the approval of the Chief Justice nominee. Mr. Speaker, as I indicated when she appeared before the Appointments Committee, I've known her personally for over 30 years, and so I have no doubt in vouching for her personal integrity, attention to detail, scholarship. Mr. Speaker, I've known her for over 30 years, and I have no hesitation in testifying to her attention to detail, personal integrity, her scholarship, her diligence, and her commitment to duty, amongst others. I was also intrigued that when asked on what legacy she intended to leave as Chief Justice after her tenure, she indicated that she wanted to be remembered for efficiency, incorporation of technology, court intervention strategies, and lifting competencies to a new level so that justice delivery would be synonymous with efficiency. She also acknowledged the need to assist the judicial service workers and the judges to change their attitudes to technology, and so would focus on change management to facilitate their uptake of technology in the delivery of justice, while also recognizing that we can't solely rely on technology, but also have to look at marrying manual processes with digital technologies to enhance efficiency. For me, as a woman, I'm also particularly enthused that we have another visible role model at the highest level of governance in this country for our young ladies to also look up to and aspire to be like. And so it is equally important for us to have role models at all levels. And the judiciary has demonstrated through Chief Justice Georgina Wood, Sophia Kufu, and hopefully with our approval, Gertrude Torkornoo as another example of female excellence within the judicial service. I'm grateful that this House and the committee has approved her by consensus, showing that we all agree that she is a fitting addition to the annals of history as the Chief Justice of the Republic. And I can only congratulate her and count on her also demonstrating without any equivocation that when given the opportunity, women can and do excel in whatever capacity they are enjoined to contribute their quota to the development of the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. First, I want to thank my colleagues for. I'm sorry if I've jumped into.
Yes,
sorry.
Chairman, go on. I had ended this, but because it's your report, you may want to respond to one or two things.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The question. That's what I stated earlier on.
Just two things, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank members for.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on the Judiciary, I'm ranking, and no one has been heard on this subject. This one, I thought that you would give us the opportunity to. Yes.
Honorable First Deputy Speaker, you may go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, Honorable Senior Member. The Speaker, I want to thank.
He is our senior at the bar.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, very senior at the bar.
But this intervention, I didn't want to say it, so I won't say it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
He wants to use his seniority to get me to give him the opportunity, which I won't do.
Mr. Speaker, I'm bound by the ethics of the law to see to him. That's why I sat down when he rose. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to continue. Thank you. Thank you. I thank colleagues for their contribution. Ordinarily, I'll leave it here, but I think it is important for our own records to emphasize one thing. Judges know that as humans they can err, and judges always welcome criticism of their judgment. But when we are critiquing a judgment, it is expected that we will critique the judgment with law, with facts, with alternative argument. we should shy away or move away from just criticizing because we agree or disagree. Otherwise, we give room for people to attack the individual judges rather than the judgment. Members are encouraged to feel free to research and bring alternative arguments, legal arguments, to challenge the judges. That is how the law has been developed over the years. And so we should not shy away from criticizing judgment, except that we should demonstrate that the judge either did not look at the particular law, he overlooked something, or he did not interpret the judgment in a particular way. I regret to observe that my colleague, the Honorable Member, the Chief Whip, made an observation that the immediate past Chief Justice has left behind what a miscarriage of justice. I beg to differ. Each judge is responsible for what he writes in his or her name. I encourage anyone who wishes to charge any judge with anything done or not done to take a particular judgment of that person and demonstrate that in his role, in his judgment, he has left or he has visited miscarriage of justice of anyone. Of course, politicians are free to speak one way or the other, and particularly in this chamber, we have the protection of the Constitution to speak freely. But I think it is an unfair criticism to Justice Eniebwa as being a High Court judge, a Court of Appeal judge, and a Supreme Court judge. Then if you look through the records, you would find that he's probably has even exceeded Justice Taylor in writing dissenting views. He is very independent in what it even is. He is presiding. His colleagues rule for he dissents, and his position is very clear. I think we should judge him on what he has written as a judge, the content of his law, and his integrity. I'll say, either from practice or as a judge, his integrity has been above board. But a politician's verdict is different from the lawyer's verdict, and the lawyer's verdict was given on his last day. In the last 35 years, he's the only Chief Justice which the Bar Association has formally honored. That is a good record, and that should be respected. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I urge all of us to vote and adopt the report of the committee. I thank you very much.
Honorable members, I thank all of you for your cooperation. But please, let's try to appreciate and understand the difficult situation the judiciary operates in the Ghanaian context. The Ghanaian context is different from that of the US, and it's very different from that of the UK. And particularly, the constitution that we've crafted for ourselves have really put the judiciary in a very difficult situation. So we should, as much as possible, as partisan politicians, try to empathize with the judiciary. Without the judiciary and without the rule of law, we ourselves will not be here. There will be no democracy, there will be no law and order, and we will be in a jungle. But that is not to say you should not criticize them. As stated by the First Deputy Speaker, yes, criticize. Criticisms are welcome. From time to time, when I disagree with them, I call them individually and I have discussion with them, and they try to explain the viewpoints that they've taken. Whether I agree or disagree, that is a different matter altogether. But please, publicly coming out, running at them, should be discouraged. Take a particular subject matter or issue and criticize, not general statements. That one will impugn on the integrity, the reputation, the dignity, the authority of the judiciary. With this, I put the question. Those in favor, say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the House has accordingly given prior approval to the appointment of the nominee to the position of a Chief Justice. I will take this opportunity to thank you once again and then call on the First Deputy Speaker to take the chair. Honorable members, we will now go back to statements. And as I stated earlier on, the Honorable Member for Tamale South, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, has a statement to make today. Honorable Member, you may make your statement now. Majority Leader, you don't want your friend to make his statement?
No. Mr. Speaker, I cannot obstruct that. I need to step out, and I was craving your indulgence to let us go to public business for me to just present these requests. Then I can exit. That is item 6.
You're welcome back, and that was the debate on the floor of Parliament. Charged debate and hearing from both sides. The Speaker of Parliament went through the process, but what we know now is that Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Torkornoo has been approved. Let me cross over now to Kweku Asante, who is our parliamentary correspondent, to give us the scoop on that. Kweku, if you can hear me, what exactly has taken place now? Has the House, in fact, approved Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Torkornoo, and what should we know?
Right, Benjamin. So just about 5 minutes ago, Parliament unanimously approved Justice Gertrude Torkornoo to become Ghana's new Chief Justice. What is left now is for the President to swear her in officially to become the new Chief Justice. But this approval went through still smooth without much difficulties because both sides had agreed to approve of her nomination by consensus. That means at the committee level, both the NDC MPs and the NPP MPs who are on the committee agreed that Justice Gertrude Torkornoo's nomination must go through, and that is exactly what happened. And so when it came to the floor today, of course, there was some spirited debate on both sides of the aisle, in particular the minority, making their strong opposition to some of the judgment of Justice Torkornoo herself and also the Supreme Court known, clear that they are not so excited about the recent decision involving Judge Quinton. They are not so excited about the Supreme Court decision in the birth certificate cases. Despite all this, they endorsed Justice Gertrude Torkornoo because they believe she is qualified to go onto the court. And so after this debate, the Speaker of Parliament put the question, and by a voice vote, Parliament has now approved Justice Torkornoo. There was a question as to the number of people who approves of a nomination to say aye. They all did, and then when it was time to say no, there was no no's. And so the process now has concluded from the side of Parliament. Parliament will now have to communicate to the presidency of this confirmation, and then the presidency, we expect that as soon as this evening, will swear in Justice Gertrude Torkornoo to take over. Mind you, tomorrow, Justice Jones Doche, who has been acting as Chief Justice for a while now, is going on retirement. She actually read her valedictory judgment yesterday, and tomorrow, 8th June, she would have turned 70 and she would have retired. He would have retired, I beg your pardon. That would mean that this evening or early tomorrow, if Justice Gertrude Torkornoo is sworn in, there will be no vacuum, there will be no need to pass on the baton to the next senior most judge. And Justice Gertrude Torkornoo will start what could potentially be a decade at the helm of affairs as Chief Justice. She's just clocking 60 years, and justices of the Supreme Court retired 70. It means that she can have up to 10 years as Chief Justice, just like Justice Theodora Georgina Wood had, also 10 years between 2007 and 2017. If all things go as planned, and Justice Gertrude Torkornoo is sworn in today, she would have from now, 2023, to about 2033 before she will retire. as Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana.
Well, interesting dynamics that have played out, and now we do know that the nominee has sailed through. Any other outstanding matters to report on this, or are we just to cross our fingers and wait to see whether Mr. President will actually give us assent to her this evening, Kweku?
Well, indeed, what our understanding is that the presidency had been waiting on this approval to come in, and that the processes for a ceremony to swear her in has already been concluded. So now that Parliament has approved of her nomination, Parliament will convey that officially to the presidency, and Justice Gertrude Torkornoo will be informed about that. She will be called to the presidency and she will be sworn in. And like I said, we expect that that ceremony will happen as soon as this evening, and Justice Gertrude Torkornoo will be the new Chief Justice of the Republic.
Kweku, thank you for filling us in. Thank you for the good work you keep doing. Kweku Asante is our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. And this has been the extended version of Joy News today. Of course, we brought you that live feed from Parliament, including the debate on the floor of Parliament on the approval of Justice. Now, Chief Justice elect, if you want to call her that, Chief Justice approved for the Republic of Ghana. Thank you very much for staying with us. We'll bring you more tidbits on this network, Joy News.